Mrs. Mr. Split.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. My name is Reverend Jeffrey Dodson, and it is my distinct privilege to offer tonight's invocation at this meeting. I'm a minister in the Christian tradition and pastor at First Congregational Church of Ripon, founded 170 years ago as an anti-slavery church. I invite you, whatever your faith tradition, and those of no tradition or church, to be in the spirit of prayer with me. Gracious God, tonight this room is filled with beautiful people who have come to engage democracy at our local level. I give thanks for the diversity of perspectives present tonight and for the whole community of Ripon. Our hearts have been stirred by issues of the day. We give you thanks that our community has the opportunity to gather in this room in this way, to listen, to debate, to compromise, to agree, and to be led. I ask that you bless all of our community members gathered here tonight and the ones who are not here. Imbue us with the love of neighbor in the manner that Jesus Christ taught, that we may be good Samaritans to one another, and to love and forgive as if we were prodigal sons, prodigal citizens who are human and make mistakes. Bless our leaders who guide us with their wisdom, and especially bless their spirits when the decisions they must make are hard. Let all of us be courageous. God, I pray that your wisdom will guide our city of Ripon, our beloved community, in your holy way of justice and compassion. Amen.
All right. Before getting an approval of the agenda, I would like to rearrange slightly, putting the proclamation for the voluntary masking in with the discussion on face masks to combine the two items. Would there be a motion to approve the agenda with that adjustment?
I'll motion it.
Second.
It has been moved by Ben, seconded by Dave. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved with the adjustment. All right, now for the public communication and comment, we have quite a list of people that would like to speak this evening. Most of them are on one topic. So I'm going to take the two that are not on that topic out first and ask Bill and Trevin Schultz to come forward first. And I'd like to limit everyone to 5 minutes this evening. And it's a long list, so if you don't need the full 5 minutes, we would appreciate conciseness.
Right.
State your name and your address before you start.
My name is Bill Schultz,
My name is Trevin.
and we're at 116 East Lane Street here in Ripon. And I don't think we're going to take the full 5 minutes here. We did have the opportunity outside of this meeting to actually socialize this idea with Mr. Split, but we wanted to bring it in front of the full board. My son Trevin here and his buddies like to skateboard at the skate park here in Ripon at Selfridge Park. And it has been brought to our attention, as well as his buddies and his parents, that the park is not safe. It has equipment that has not been maintained over the years and quite frankly could probably withstand either be repaired and or replaced. It is my understanding that there's probably not budget for this type of a project. If there is, we would like to be made aware of that. Trevin has been working with a company out of Missouri called the American Ramp Company on a proof of concept, 3 different proof of concepts with budgets on how we can make that park a little bit better. And I guess the question is, if there's not a budget, how do we go about fundraising for something like this? Trevin's 12 years old. He's got a GoFundMe page set up. If we could use the city's 501c3 status for that fundraising opportunity, we would like to. But most importantly, we'd just like to have an open dialogue here on how we can make that park better and how we can, what we can do to help. Trevin and his buddies have offered to do some community service to raise awareness about this project, but again, we're open to some ideas on how we can make this happen.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
Trevor?
All right, can't entirely read this last name, but Timothy, sorry, I can't read the last name. It's on the proclamation. It's like,
Is it Bachlightner?
yeah, it sounds like it could be right.
It's on the mask issue, so if you...
Yeah, if you'd like to speak on that issue.
All right, I'm first. Wow. Guess I thought I had a little more time. You gonna stand with me, sweetie?
You're on your own. Sure.
Okay.
If you could state your name and address before you start.
Yes, Timothy Bachlightner.
Kristen Bachlightner.
And we have our 9th baby on the way, so,
Got an address there.
address N7612 County Road E,
Yep.
Ripon, Wisconsin. We also are part owners of a property downtown, the old Ripon State Bank, where we conduct our 501c3 that cares for the fatherless and the widows in the community. So we care for the elderly and we care for the forgotten kids in the juvenile detention system. We are speaking on the proclamation that's being made today about masks. So I have a quote to start off with, quote by C.S. Lewis. If we would put ourselves in a position as we were making the Pledge of Allegiance, it said liberty and justice for all, and we find that a little ironic in a situation like this, that some of our liberties are being challenged at this moment. But C.S. Lewis said this: of all tyrannies, a tyranny that is sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It would be better to live under robber barons than under the omnipotent moral busybodies. The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep. His cupidity may at some point be satiated, but those who torment us for our own good will torment us without end, for they do so with the approval of their conscience. The moral busybodies, we've all had to deal with them. We've all had someone that has looked into the way that we live our lives and felt that we were immoral by the choices that we were making. You guys, many of you already know who we are. I feel it is necessary a little bit to let you know what I've done for this community and for the county that I live in, so that the accusation that can be made in my direction is not that I am an immoral person that does not care about others. We have given our lives entirely to this community. Our family, our fortune, everything that we have, our health has been given. One anecdotal story, or one short story, is while I was running my own small business to put food on the table for my family, a newspaper article was written about the care that we've extended towards the fatherless and the widows. A woman who owned a business downtown Ripon, as I was washing her windows, she pulled me inside of her store and she said, "Can I please tell you the story of how my son is suffering?" Her youngest son, addicted to drugs, in and out of the prison system. She looked and said, "I read the article about your family, that you help young men." And as she wept, she said, "Maybe you could help my son." Well, by God's providence, we spent 3.5 months mentoring, discipling, giving him what he needed, an opportunity to be built into. At the same time, I was making a call to the local senior center, offering our families help in any way, my daughter's musical ability to bring joy, or my own ability to gather young people, to care for the elderly, and to help fix their homes. We care deeply about the members of this community. And we want the freedom to be able to express that love when we walk around and show our smiles that we can connect with them. So that's our, I guess, our 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Jenny Holt. And state your name and address.
Okay, I'm Jenny Holt. My address is N8637 Comorn Road, Ripon. Is that all you needed? So, Mayor Grant and council members, I'm speaking to you tonight out of my concern for the face mask proclamation. I'm a 7th generation Riponite. I've been here a long time. My ancestors were here almost at the beginning. I grew up here personally. I graduated high school here and Ripon College. I pursued a life here with my own family. We have a small business here and we frequent Mr. Grant's store for our shipping needs. I care deeply about this great community. I care a great, great deal, and I would desire no harm to the people that live here. I feel the language of this proclamation is indeed harmful and divisive. The wording of the quote being patient and educating those who don't have on a face mask is biased towards those that do wear a face mask. There are doctors and articles and studies showing face masks are effective. There are equally as valid and well-researched doctors and articles and studies showing face masks are not effective. This depends on your worldview. I value our freedom of choice. I value being judged on the content of my character, including if I stay home if I'm not well, if I'm sneezing, being considerate to those around me, not what I put on my face. I am certain that the mayor and the good people in this community do not intend for confrontations or for fear of each other to come into our small town, for yelling or fights to come when I happen to be at the grocery store or the parking lot. The wording of patience and education leads towards a bias that those who are wearing, to those that are not wearing a mask need to be, quote, educated. And that will breed an atmosphere where citizens feel that the city has essentially deputized them to confront and, quote, educate a person not wearing a mask, regardless of it being voluntary or regardless of their legitimate medical, religious, or behavioral reasons for not wearing a mask. So where does this end? Where does it lead? Does it lead to the fear of being pitted against each other or perhaps personal harm? Surely the council and the mayor would not stand in support of that after getting behind the mural. We do not want more division. I think we could all agree on that. If the cases in Ripon and even the county are well beyond the curve being flattened out, why now is this an issue? Why now is this a proclamation? Especially with biased language. What point then is this voluntary? But basically, it becomes a fear-based control of our citizens. I fear the other citizens in my city, so I will do whatever they say. When can we say that this is no longer needed? If already the curve we all face without masks of the spring is nearly gone. When is it over? I challenge you all to do better, to be better citizens, to use common sense, and to let others use theirs.
Let's see, next would be Beth Castenschmidt.
Hi, I'm Beth Castenschmidt. I'd prefer not to give my address for safety purposes, if that's okay. I do live in Ripon. First, I want to say that I am a 9-year cancer survivor, and I had a cancer that had a 98% death rate. So because of my treatment and what I went through, I developed asthma. So I cannot wear a mask. If I do wear a mask, I can't breathe. I also have multiple family members with asthma, my grandson, one of my sons. I have a niece with cystic fibrosis, so I definitely am concerned about my family's health along with other people's. In the end of February, beginning of March, I had the coronavirus, and I was sick for about 3 weeks, and I fared through it. So I also am aware of what that feels like to have that, even with having asthma. I know it affects everybody differently, but I do see that it is a discrimination for those of us who cannot wear a mask. And I do see how we're treated differently and how people look at us like we are acting like we just don't care, that we're trying to, that we don't care that we could possibly be spreading the virus. And I have read, there's so many studies out there that say that, asymptomatic people it's rare that they spread the virus. I mean, that's what a lot of the studies are showing. And so I think, to trust people, I think where do we draw the line from, we got to start trusting people and stop thinking everybody is infected or everybody is, the majority, so many people have already been exposed to this virus before it was even known. And I also am totally aware of multiple family members that were sick and were tested for the COVID virus, 3 of them, and all 3 of them tested negative, and all 3 of them were told and I'm not diminishing that this virus is now out there, because I had it, I know it's out there, but all 3 of them, even though they tested negative, were told, we're going to put you down with the CDC that you have COVID, go home and quarantine. So there's so much controversy about this virus, but I do think that we need to trust people that they are healthy, and I think that it's a right that we should be allowed to be able to have. And I think that not being able to see people smile, their facial expressions, I think it's caused a lot of depression in a lot of people. So I just totally disagree with it. So thank you for your time.
All right. See, now the rest all seem to be on the same topic, so let's just go down the list, starting with Joaquin Saenz first.
Good evening. Thanks very much for the time. I'll just make a brief statement in support of the mural. I just thought I might bring a unique perspective from a military veteran and career standpoint, just due to the fact that most people wouldn't consider the military a very progressive or even flexible organization. For those of you who've been following the news lately, you've seen some drastic changes in the U.S. military. You've seen the fact that the Confederate flags can no longer be displayed. You've seen discussions around the fact that military bases are going to be changing their names. You've seen the fact that one of the most revered generals in modern history, Jim Mattis, has come out and criticized the possible use or the intended use of forces against the protests. And as I said, you wouldn't consider the U.S. military a very flexible or progressive organization, but one thing we are very good at, and that is making decisions and taking action. And I would have to say, based on personal knowledge, that it's almost universal to this point. The fact up to the highest echelons of the military is acknowledged that we have not had a level playing field for all of our service members. That we have done an egregious disservice to the African American and minority members of our armed services. The fact that it is not a level playing field. There have been studies done in place. The fact that minority service members are being punished twice as often as those white service members. And the military isn't afraid to take action. They're taking action across the board. And those service chiefs are taking action to ensure that this is changed across the board. And all I'm here to ask is that the example that the U.S. military is setting, as I said, nobody considers them flexible. Nobody considers them progressive. This is done not out of a knee-jerk reaction for political correctness, not out of some cancel culture, okay? This is because action is needed to take place to rectify a situation wherein the white community in this country has had rights in place for hundreds of years. The African-American community has only been recently awarded those rights as recently as the 1960s, where overlapping many of us have been born in this room, right? It's like taking a kid who's never been to high school, never been inside a public institution or had homeschooling, dropping them off at Harvard and saying, succeed, and you're guaranteed a $100,000 job when you walk out the door. It's just not a level playing field. That being said, all I ask is that the city of Ripon consider these organizations that, again, are not considered progressive or left-leaning, and the actions they're taking to ensure a level playing field, and live up to that standard that the U.S. military is setting, because I feel like it's beneficial to the city of Ripon, it's welcoming to those people who come into our community, and for those of you who don't believe that racism exists, all I ask you to do is go back and listen to the speech that young Rose gave at the Stand Together movement out on the city green, and I think you'll believe, because the conditions exist in the schools today the same way they did when I was a kid, and that racism exists in our town. It may not be on the surface, but it exists, and if I can do anything to make Little Rose's situation in school better and our town more welcoming, I'd like to see it done. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Meg Schwemmer. And again, state your name and address for the record.
I'm Meg Schwemmer. I live at 723 Woodside Avenue in Ripon. I also wish to support the Black Lives Matter mural. It gives a strong message of welcome and inclusion to those entering our city. Historically, it's important that Ripon has a connection to abolitionism, and just a decade after Ripon was established, many Riponites helped organize the Republican Party, the party of Lincoln, in response to the injustice of slavery. In 1861 to 62, Ripon and Kenosha, Wisconsin, co-founded the 1st Regiment Wisconsin Volunteer Cavalry, which served with the Union Army from 1862 to 1865. It is believed that many Ripon homes and businesses had tunnels that sheltered escaped slaves on the Underground Railroad. During the Civil Rights Movement, Ripon responded again. In 1965, Jerry Thompson, professor of religion at Ripon College, led a group of students to Selma, Alabama, to march with Martin Luther King Jr. Why not add a plaque to the Black Lives Matter site, which would tie today's message to yesterday's exceptional history? Wouldn't this be a meaningful expression of the intent of our historic district? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Pat Griffin.
My name is Catherine Griffith. I live at 955 Ransom Street. I'm actually here to share comments that were sent to me this afternoon by a student from Ripon College, and these are comments that come from a petition, so I'm going to read that. Dear members of the Ripon City Council, we are a group of Ripon College students writing to express our support for the Black Lives Matter mural downtown. We circulated an online petition which over 900 people, mostly current and recently graduated students, signed. We would like to share with you a few of the comments from the petition. This mural has the power to change this small white rural town and welcome more diverse students, especially Black students, on campus. We deserve to be welcomed in a community that many of us will live in for our undergraduate years. Black Lives Matter is not a political statement. It is a human rights issue. Inesha Weissman, a junior at Ripon College and president of the Black Student Union. A beautiful message for a beautiful town. Mackenzie Bachman. Black lives should be valued everywhere. Maggie Brown. Black lives matter anywhere and everywhere. Let this mural stay. I'm proud to see this small symbol of activism in my hometown. Dawson Albright. This is a piece of history. Katie Frank. This is an important statement about our community. Respect for people transcends the notion of historic value. Indeed, this statement is historic in that the idea of the abolition of slavery manifested itself as a political party in Ripon. Professor Robert Wallace. Black Lives Matter is an important movement and one we should remember forever. Keep the mural. Remember the names of those who died wrongfully. Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Philando Castile, Ahmaud Arbery, Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin. Tabitha Bryson. Black lives are beautiful. Black lives are meaningful. Black lives are important. Macy Sanko. I believe in justice and equality for all. Denise Gober. Taking this mural down will send the wrong message to people of color in Ripon. Ben Fisher. And this is a closing paragraph. Finally, we want you to know that the Queer Straight Alliance of Ripon College, the Black Student Union of Ripon College, the Asian Student Association of Ripon College, Brothers Reaching Out, La Unida, Ripon College Feminists, Cultural Diversity Club, Amnesty International, and the Disabilities Rights, Education, and Activism support this mural and support the message that it sends to our diverse students, especially our Black students. Sincerely, Serenity Swachka, President of the Queer Straight Alliance. I also have my own comments, but I will not read those. I'll just submit them in paper if there's a place I can do that. Is there anyone who takes these?
Thank you. Doug IVerson?
Doug IVerson, 543 Fenton Street. I'm here to say that I think that the mural downtown is provocative public political art and should stay there. I feel that it broadly fits in with the founding of the socialist commune Ceresco that Ripon later absorbed after it disbanded, and with the founding of the old Republican Party a few years later. So therefore, I think the certificate of appropriateness should stand. Second, the fine of over $800 should also stand. They got a letter. The letter said, cover it up within 72 hours and there'd be no fine. Instead, they were on TV saying they weren't going to pay it, and they didn't have to pay it, and it's a reflection of who's ever looking at it. I got to tell you, adults don't act like that. They would have not been a fine. We wouldn't be fighting this. They could have easily got a certificate. It was granted. It was a nondescript wall. I didn't see there was any historical value to it. There was nothing there before, and now there's something that I think is worthy to be there. So that's what I have to say. Make them pay the fine or it comes down. Thanks.
Doug. Andy Sorensen.
My name is Andy Sorensen. I live at 628 State Street, and I co-own a business here on Watson Street in downtown Ripon. I want to talk today about why I support the Black Lives Matter mural, as far as a technical standpoint and how I feel as to how the council should proceed in this matter. The co-owner of my business, Ellen Sorensen, and myself have all sent you a letter regarding those feelings. However, I would like to talk to you on a personal level tonight as someone who grew up in the city of Ripon as a minority. Growing up as part of the LGBT community and in Ripon, I would like to preface this by saying I am obviously a white man, and that gives me certain privileges in this case, one is which to be able to come and stand before you tonight. Why the Black Lives Matter mural is important. If you had asked my grandmother, she would say, well, no, silly, we got rid of racism years ago. And to that I always say, well, bless your heart, Grandma. If you know the slang, you know what that means. I was walking to work a couple weeks ago, and the mother of another gay person who lives in town stopped me on the street, and she had said that a car had driven by, and they had yelled at her son, oh, I see the gay boy is back in town. And she had asked me if that kind of thing happens to me here in Ripon. And I slightly giggled. And I replied, well, that's actually downright polite to the things that have been said to me from speeding cars here in town. Part of growing up gay in a small rural community for myself is, and many of the gay people I know who come from small rural communities, I usually get called faggot by the car screen going by, and it's usually followed by an empty beer bottle or a glass beer bottle. If you're gay and you haven't had this experience, you're another minority in a privileged group. I know that I know so many people think that this behavior doesn't exist anymore. I'm here to tell you it does. We all know it does. It happened 2 years ago when a student from Ripon College was jogging in town and someone drove by him and screamed a racial slur. This is why it's important that we're having this conversation now, why it's important that we all acknowledge that Black Lives Matter, and why it's important that this mural stays. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. Mandy Kimes?
All right, I'm Mandy Kimes, and I live at 309 Ransom Street. Thank you so much, Council. I imagine that you've gotten a lot more emails and calls in this season than maybe normal, and this isn't like your full-time gig. And so I really deeply appreciate your work. These are really crazy times, and it almost feels like, I don't know if you ever wake up and you're like, is this still happening? But I feel like that's my normal. And I've gotten to sit in on a lot of council meetings. Sometimes I'm really determined to stay to the end, and then I just can't make it. And whether it's like street conditions or chickens or masks or murals, I'm just super aware of how much you all really care for our community. I also want to just say, because I think a lot of the people on the Historical Commission who are here and then might be watching this, I'm super thankful for the work they've put into this and the amount of time and emails and calls they've received. I came to you before you all for the first time a little bit over a month ago to invite you to a unity event called Stand Together. I didn't think I'd be involved in local politics this much ever, but here I am. And I just want to say I'm super thankful to our mayor, to our police chief, and all of the people in our community, the members that came and shared their story. There's just so much us versus them. There's all these debating and conflicting statistics and facts. And so in the midst of all that, it was super amazing to hear from real people who live in our town with their real stories about the real problem of racism and discrimination in Ripon. And so that event was over a month ago, literally. And since then, there's been so many conversations and really amazing realizations that people have had. There's been all these opportunities for people to learn and just come to terms with things they never really, kind of like seeing blind spots that you didn't even know were there. And so this mural, I want to let you know, because I've been just in on the craziness and the debating and the conversations, this mural is doing the same thing. And we're in this small town and we know each other. And I think we have an opportunity to do things differently than we see happening on the national stage. And so these artists, this process, I know them and I've seen their love. I've seen how much they really want this community to be more welcoming and to be more safe. And to have opportunities, like I talked about from the Unity event, for healing and for really good change. And so this mural is a catalyst. It's just one way to make our hearts as a community clear. And as I came to you a month ago, I told you that this work feels really important, that it's worth the time, the heartache, the straight up anxiety, but that I love this town and I love to dream about who we can be if we keep leaning in, showing up, and listening, if we refuse to turn against one another. And so I just want to encourage you that someday the historical societies and the history books are going to reflect what is happening in our nation and also what's happening in Ripon. And I hope we can feel proud of the impact we have made. And so I strongly urge you to vote to approve the entire consent calendar. Just get that over with and just come together to make a great statement for our community. And so thank you for your time and thank you for listening.
Rob Wichow.
Thanks, Mandy.
How you guys doing tonight? Rob Wichow, 223 Union Street. Thanks for your time. Thanks for hearing me. I really was going to prepare something more, what do you want to say, pleasant and educated, but I'm just going to shoot from the cuff, and I apologize for my attire and my look, but I just got done with work. As I stated last week, I threw it out there and made it known that I am not racist. I served in my Marine Corps and served with every walk of life and have proven time and time again through family that I have and people that I associate with and are friends with that I am not racist. So I don't have to go any further with that or prove otherwise. But what I find offensive to me on a personal level is when I do not agree with other people's ideology, then I am racist. That is just, at its very core, childish and throwing accusations out there that does not need to be. Moving on with that, with this mural, I've said I would help in any way, shape, or form to move it or whatever, since the laws and ordinances were violated, plain and simple, bar none. But I will ask you this, have we thought about the future of what that mural will hold? And I know that's sending a message, and if something's sending a message, that is a sign. Just like with the original application that was filed incomplete, the wording on there was signage. Now, miraculously, to whittle away, now it's been changed to artwork. Now, I don't know a lot about art. I did when I was younger. But I know if you're sending a message and communicating more than just feelings or expressing people to feel better about themselves or whatever, you're communicating a message that is now a sign. Just like I stated last week when I held up a flag, is this a sign to show that I'm a part of an organization or group? Yes, it is. So that's a sign. I'm communicating. Just like the BLM, the original core start of the BLM, I believe, was in essence pure and wanted to convey a message to make people wake up that there are inhumanities going on within the police force and how the police force is getting treated and how they are treating back to said black lives. But my fear is what these other entities are trying to do and get their foothold in on this community on something that was originally pure of heart, and acknowledging that we need to pull together as humans, human race. Now, what's going to happen in the future when, say, Mr. Luna sells that business and the next person comes in to purchase said business, and he doesn't have the same ideology that is being conveyed with that sign? And yes, I will call it a sign because it's communicating a message. Moving on, what is going to happen with that business owner? Is he going to have a chance in hell if he wants to remove that, or he makes Mr. Luna remove it? He's going to be judged. It has to be removable, plain and simple. That's what the ordinance reads. So that's what should be done. Moving on from that, I'm asking now if you guys do want to work together and mean it, then I want to know, and I want everybody to work together on both sides of this fence and this debate that has caused so much dispute and downright evilness when originally it was intended to make awareness. I'm asking everybody in this community, what guarantees can we have and in place to work together to make sure that these outside entities that we all know worldwide or nationwide are threatening our societies, our businesses, our monuments, and everything else, and even our lives? How can we work together then to make sure that something that you guys say is innocent and pure of heart and you guys want to remain and keep that up, then how are we going to work together to protect this community? Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, Natezimdars.
Natezimdars, 537 May Party Drive. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Natezimdars. I am currently serving our community on the Ripon Area School Board. I am the president of the Ripon FFA Alumni, and I am also a candidate for the 41st Assembly District, running to represent the city and town of Ripon and the surrounding villages, townships, and cities. First off, I would like to begin by thanking all of you for your service to our community. As someone who is also elected by our fellow neighbors and friends here in our community, I want to say thank you for that service that you are showing, and I also want to express that I am more than aware of the challenges and frustrations and also the joys that you experience serving in your capacity to our community. That is why I am here tonight. As a community leader here in Ripon, I want to stand before you and express my support for the Black Lives Matter mural. I believe that this is an example of living history. All of us, no matter where we fall on this issue, we can look at the year 2020 and recognize that this is going to be one for the history books, no matter how you cut the pie. This movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, is a movement that really began to sprung up in earnest following the murder of George Floyd, and we have seen all across this country, in our urban communities, in our rural communities, and out in the countryside, voices that have risen up to say, Black Lives Matter. This mural is an example of a local business owner who wanted to show solidarity and offer a sign of welcome to individuals identifying as Black within our community. And while I recognize that there is a need for rules and regulations in our community, and that there was some misunderstanding around what needed to be done in order to put up this sign, there has been an apology that was issued, and the proper fines have been levied as a result of the misunderstanding and the violation that did occur. That being said, it is within the council's ability to go ahead and to approve this mural. And I believe we can all agree that this is an example of living history, given everything that is going on within our country. And I will also believe that it is the right of a small business owner to make some changes to the facade of his business. And as we were speaking a little bit earlier, there were several folks in here who had expressed concern of government overreach and of freedom and regulations that can be seen as overburdensome. Is this an example, perhaps, of government overreach, discussing the dimensions of a mural that is painted on a private business owner's business? That is for you to decide here tonight. As a fellow elected community leader here in Ripon, I want to offer my support for this mural, and I also want to again thank you for your service and all the hard work that you do for everyone here who calls Ripon home. And on that note, I also want to remind everyone that Ripon is a diverse place filled with many different voices, and that as elected officials, we must do everything in our power to serve everyone within our community, and perhaps this is a way for us to continue in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. You were given.
Spoke on the mask. What you asked for. That group to speak first.
All right, come on back up.
Apologizing, I thought I was supposed to only speak about one subject at a time. First, I would like to say right away that I am anything but a racist, so I'm going to debunk that right away. My sister-in-law is black. I have a niece and nephew that are black. I have a cousin that's black. I grew up in Anaheim, California. 99% of my friends were Hispanic. My grandmother is Native American, so I am anything but a racist. My issue with the mural is, of course, all Black Lives Matter, and I think most of us, I would hope everybody here would agree with that. My issue with the mural is with what's going on with the movement. I'm just going to read some news because I don't have it all memorized. So these are just some news facts that are going on right now. So Black Lives Matter advocate kneels on 2-year-old baby's neck because, I quote, BLM now. Charles Wade, BLM co-founder, was arrested in 2016 for child sex trafficking. Black Lives Matter riots have destroyed more innocent black lives in the last month than white officers have in a decade. Black Lives Matter rioters suspected of killing 8-year-old on July 4th. These are all news articles. The protesters are no longer peaceful as they are now throwing objects, shining lasers, and shooting large fireworks at officers. Violent agitators over the weekend torched courthouses in California and Colorado amid Black Lives Matter protests across the country. Former Princeton professor says Democrats are using black people to advance a radical agenda. Black Lives Matter co-founder admits to being trained, that they are trained Marxists. Here's another. Here's a quote. We understand the frustration by the conservatives about our movement. However, we aim to have our voices heard at all costs. Sure, there's a lot of yelling and stomping, but the right needs to see past that and remember that there is a message. They should give us what we want now, and this will all be now, and all this will be over. At least one person dead after shots were fired Saturday evening at Black Lives Matter demonstration in Austin, Texas, officials said. A suspect in the case was detained and cooperating with authorities. Agitators with a crowd of demonstrators have set the Alameda County Superior Courthouse on fire. Violent agitators over the weekend torched courthouses in California and Colorado amid Black Lives Matter protests across the country. I could go on and on and on and on because there's many of them. This is what our issue is with the sign. There's a lot more to just that statement of Black Lives Matter. There's a whole movement that is destroying cities in our country, and people aren't standing up because they're afraid of retaliation. There's news of a young mother who got shot and murdered because she said all lives matter to a Black Lives Matter protester. And this is where the controversy is truly standing. I mean, our black people are getting killed astronomically by other black people. And our officers are tirelessly risking their lives trying to save them from that also, too. And so this is what the real issue is. And I just urge everybody here to actually to read all sources and don't just read one side of the side that you want to choose to believe, because there's a lot of truth that needs to be told on both sides. And I know there's people in this room that have really big hearts, and I know if they truly knew and believed the facts and what's really going on in our country, that I think that they would feel a little differently. And I have one more thing to say, and this is a hard one. I don't wish to throw anybody under the bus, and I don't wish to cause any controversy with any individual here in Ripon. But with that being said, it's time that we stand up, and we stand up for what's right. And an individual stood here at this podium and gave their story about what was unjustly done to them and how sad it was. That same individual, when the day that Pence came into town, we were all standing there with our children, not because we're Republican or Democratic, it's because it was a moment in history for our city where we could stand there with our children and dress our children up and give our kids a piece of history, regardless of what side of what side they're going to grow up to end up vote on, whether it be Republican or Democrat. And my husband, being military, he fought for that right for us to be able to do that and to do that safely. Okay. Let me.
And that's your time anyhow. Sorry.
Excuse me, a lot of people have been talking about their personal feelings, Lud.
No, individual. She was talking about individual.
Excuse me, Lud.
Hey, that's your time.
She had her time to talk, let her speak.
That was her 5 minutes anyhow.
Way past 5 minutes.
I thank everyone for their comments. And again, please keep your tone civil. We'll move on the agenda. Next item up is the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar as published?
So moved. Second. Oh, everybody now, come on now.
It's been moved by David, seconded by Ben. Any discussion on that?
Mayor, I'd call for a voice vote, please.
Thank you. Any other discussion? We'll put it to a vote. Lori?
Mr. Schrader.
Aye.
Mrs. Schatzinger.
Aye.
Mr. Hanson.
Aye.
Mr. Gallops.
Aye.
Mr. Morrison.
Aye.
Mr. Wirch.
Aye.
Mr. Split.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Consent calendar is approved. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Moving on to our first action item, the request for street closures from Ripon Main Street for their wine walk. Looks like August 7th on the 200 and 300 blocks of Watson Street. Also a waiver of the ban for open intoxicants from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. on that day as well. Let's see.
Would move to approve the request.
Second.
It's been moved by Al, seconded by Howard. Is there any discussion? Unless, Laura, do you want to put a recap on that, or?
Nope.
Nope, all right. Pretty straightforward. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of approving the request for street closure on August 7th, as well as waiving the open intoxicants ban from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m., say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the Plan Commission minutes, recognizing request to rezone 63 Stony Ridge Road to residential R1. Is there a motion to approve that item?
I'll motion to approve. Second.
Has been moved by John, seconded by David. Any discussion? Jim?
Just to Lori, any issue with TID, TIF, anything like that with that property?
No, no.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of rezoning 63 Stony Ridge Road to R1, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Next item up is the proclamation and discussion of face masks. I will start by reading the proclamation. This is proclamation for voluntary masking. Whereas a novel strain of SARS coronavirus 2 virus named COVID-19 has spread throughout numerous countries, including the United States. And whereas the World Health Organization, the United States Department of Health and Human Services and the state of Wisconsin have declared a public health emergencies. And whereas evidence suggests that wearing a cloth face covering reduces the risk of person with a COVID-19 infection spreading the infection to others and may also protect people without a COVID-19 infection from exposure to droplets that may contain the virus, and health authorities, including the Centers for Disease Control, the Surgeon General of the United States, and the Wisconsin Department of Health and Human Services, have recommended the use of face coverings as a means of preventing the spread of COVID-19. And whereas the city of Ripon, in cooperation with local, state, and federal governmental entities, desires to take action to prevent exposure to and spread of the COVID-19 coronavirus by strongly encouraging the use of face coverings by persons within the city of Ripon, by those persons able to wear cloth face coverings, and whereas the majority of people are able to wear cloth face coverings, some people may not be able to due to medical conditions, mental conditions, or disability, and it is important for everyone to show patience and respect for others. Now, therefore, I, Theodore Grant, Mayor of Ripon, Wisconsin, hereby proclaim and declare the following: that all persons who are present within the jurisdiction of the city of Ripon are strongly encouraged to wear a clean face covering anytime they are or will be in contact with other people who are not household members in public or private spaces where it is not possible to maintain social distance or where recommended social distancing practices are not being followed. These spaces include grocery stores, pharmacies, business locations, parking lots, sidewalks, and public buildings, and public transit, and that everyone is encouraged to show respect to those who are not able to wear face coverings for medical, religious, behavioral, or other reasons, and to practice patience and to educate those who may not wear a face covering because they are not aware of the benefits of face coverings, have forgotten or are not wearing face coverings for other personal reasons. Likewise, the public is encouraged to respect those who choose to wear face masks. So at this time, we could make a motion to approve that proclamation, or we could discuss further options for face coverings within the city of Ripon, or we could do both.
Make a movement to discuss.
Howard first? Okay.
I was just going
All right, so movement's been made by Ben.
to second that.
Howard seconds. Jim?
I think maybe for Ludd would be a point of order of what we can and cannot do as a city. We've gotten numerous emails and calls over the last couple of weeks regarding people wanting us to mandate a face mask ordinance. And what we can and can't do as a city, as we do not have a local CDC, we do not have local distinction to be able to do that. So maybe some clarification on that, Ludd or Lori or Ted or whoever has that information, please.
I can start. The question of whether or not cities have the authority to pass mandatory mask ordinances, I think, is at play. There are some cities now stepping out without having a health officer and are adopting ordinances like those concept of mandatory masks.
And then the other question I have is in respect to the language and where this draft actually came from. Am I correct that this draft was designed behind the city of Oshkosh by you, Mayor?
Al worked with myself and City of Oshkosh.
And some of the language I do have issue with, as well as some of the comments we heard in public comment. Again, to me, the sentence of, to educate those who do not wear a face mask covering, I believe that does open that up to whatever word you want to put on that. It could be divisive between that. So I don't like some of the language in the draft as it is.
Al?
I guess I would agree with Jim. The premise behind this was simply that we're taking a position whereby we encourage people. We don't want people questioning each other or working to educate each other. And I would think that a second draft would eliminate that particular statement in the last paragraph. We want people to respect each other. We want people to understand that this is something that we care about in our community, and this is an opportunity for the council to do that. I am not in favor of mandating a mask policy, whatever, but this is advisory in an attempt to support both those that prefer to wear a mask and those that do not prefer to wear a mask.
If I may. So I've received numerous emails, I think we all have, on the ideology of mandating a mask in our city. I've also received numerous phone calls and emails about not wanting a mask. So maybe some of the public here doesn't know. I do work in the medical field. I do deal with COVID-19 daily. At work, I do wear a mask because it is my job. With that being said, that is a private business that is telling me to wear a mask. I choose outside of work to not wear a mask because that's my right. As we all are in here, we're all free Americans. And we should be able to decide what we want to do with our bodies. But I would strongly suggest, and I agree with the education aspect, people can look into it, look into the virus itself. There is danger to it, and it doesn't affect everybody the same. But those who do have immune-compromised disorders, it affects you more worse than it would affect me or a healthy individual. But I'm very pro a private business deciding if they want you to wear a mask. But I would implore the rest of the people who do not agree with wearing a mask, you can still shop there. You can do online ordering, and that's kind of cool. Or you can shop somewhere else too. And I know that's what I do. So, it's just what I wanted to say.
Turn around, and I agree with Al. I do not endorse a mandated mask for our community. The citizens of Ripon are very intelligent. They know what they need to do, and they've been doing it. The state closed down many small businesses for 10 weeks. And in order for those businesses to open up, there were procedures that needed to be followed according to the Fond du Lac County Health Department, which they have been doing since they opened up in June. And a lot of that is to post statements on their doors stating what their policy is for their business. A lot of the businesses I've talked to down on the main street here of the 200 and 300 block, out of 10 of them that I just randomly stopped in and talked to, 8 are not in favor of a mask. They feel they'll lose customers. The other 2 were very adamant about wearing it, which is their right. I feel for the city to turn around and say that everybody needs to wear a mask here, there, and whatever. We're intelligent enough to know when we're going to be close enough to other individuals to properly wear one. I keep one in my pocket all the time. Today, I'm spaced out far enough. I don't feel it's a problem. The other aspect is that we just need to turn around and educate ourselves a little bit more. If you have questions, like Ben said, there's a lot of good information online to go and check out and go that way. But the way this proclamation is set right now, it's no different than what's happening right now in the city. People have the opportunity to either wear a mask or not wear a mask. Businesses have the right to turn around and decide whether they want people that come into their store to wear a mask or not wear a mask. And that's where it should be left. Thank you.
John?
If this truly is a voluntary proclamation, I agree with Howard. By now, people have made up their minds if they want to wear a mask, if they don't want to wear a mask. And I truly don't see even going forward with this proclamation.
Okay. James?
The part of the proclamation that stood out to me the most that I liked about it was 3 places in there it talked about patience and respect for other persons. And I think that's been a big talking point of a lot of the communication tonight, of a lot of the citizens and a lot of what we're talking about. 3 different places. Encouraged to show respect. Important for everyone to show patience and respect. Likewise, the public is encouraged to respect those who choose to wear. 3 different places in the proclamation, it also talks about respect. So it's not only saying a proclamation that we're encouraging people to do it, but there is a part in there that 3 times talks about the fact, kind of to what everybody just said, everybody has their own freedom of choice, but please respect that choice either way. So that I can get behind 100%, because if everybody wants their own choice, fine, but respect everybody else's as well. So, thank you.
Elaine?
I agree, good points about respect, and I think one way that this proclamation can serve the community is that for some people, for many people, whether you choose not to wear a mask or whether you do choose to wear a mask, people can feel uncomfortable. And I think that's been notified. Again, everyone just wants respect. And I think for those people that may, for health reasons or other reasons, personal reasons, may want to wear a mask, but have felt like they don't have the courage otherwise to, they can point to the proclamation and say, hey, look, this is why I'm doing it, because our city made a proclamation. When I worked in the schools, sometimes students would use the reason, this is why they're following the rules, because the school is saying this. I think what's nice is it gives them some of that backup, that courage for those people that maybe otherwise may not have that. And I have heard, like Mr. Howard said, of people having, business owners concerning about mandating masks. And I've also heard of people saying that they have not gone shopping in certain establishments because masks are not required. And so one of the reasons why I am so grateful to be an elected official is because I want to advocate for transparency and engagement. And it was so inspiring to see so many people stand up and share their opinions. And I know this is taking a little different way, but I do wish that we had some type of a community online board. I know it might get tricky to have a Facebook page, for example, but for those people that want information as to what businesses are requiring face masks or not requiring face masks so they can make an educated decision, I wish that our city had a place where that information could be found. The same with this proclamation. How is this necessarily, for any proclamation, easily accessible for folks that want to see this? If we had, through social media that we have now, a place where we could post, here was a proclamation our city made, whatever it may be. Again, I'm not ready to have a formal proposal right now, but I do want to advocate that, especially when we are having unique times, such as right now during this pandemic and in the future, I wish that we had more engagement with our community to help them get the information that would help our citizens.
I may add, everything that I've read daily is a lot of times you see individuals getting screamed at ran out of the store for not wearing a mask. I know my wife, who we take care of our granddaughter, and she has to go to stores, and my granddaughter's 10 months old and she doesn't wear a mask. The dirty looks that my wife gets, that's a lack of respect to each other because of her choice to not be able to cover our 10-month-old granddaughter who cannot wear a mask because, let's face it, children just take everything off their faces. I think respect goes both ways. I think since the first day that I've met a few members on this board, a couple have worn masks, and that's great. I mean, that's awesome. But I think what needs to be added to it, and Mr. Grant here did put it in his proclamation, that respect should be warranted on both sides. If you decide to wear one, great. If you don't, great. I'm not going to scream at you for wearing a mask, but don't scream at me because I chose not to. And I just want the public to be able to know that, and I hope everybody in here is able to go out and tell people that. So I appreciate the time, everybody.
I'd like to make a proposal to amend the last paragraph to this proclamation. Basically just taking out a good section of it. So it would read that everyone is encouraged to show respect to those who are not able to wear face coverings for medical, religious, behavioral, or other reasons, period. And then skip down to likewise, the public is encouraged to respect those who choose to wear face masks. So it would remove the section that says, and to practice patience and to educate and so on. So it takes out the controversial education line and, in my opinion, would avoid confrontations between citizens.
Mayor, would you accept an additional edit? First sentence after your decree, the word strongly deleted. City of Ripon, or with present within the jurisdiction of the city of Ripon are encouraged to wear a clean face covering at any time.
Strongly is just an adjective, doesn't need to be there.
One more while we're editing, if we can. Parking lots and sidewalks, I mean, outdoors.
Business locations, that should be a business owner's decision.
Cleaning up after yourselves. I see masks all over the darn place. Rubber gloves. Clean up after yourselves. I think that should be added in there too.
My personal opinion on the parking lot, sidewalks, and business locations, I would still personally encourage people to wear them in those locations if you're within the 6 feet. It is still your choice to do it, but I would encourage you to do it. So on those 3 points, I would like to leave those words in. This is not a mandate, it's just encouragement.
And why do we need to even have the proclamation? If we're just encouraging, that's what we've been doing. Since this has come around, it's been common practice.
It's an official voice from the city's government. Right now, there is no official voice.
Isn't that what this city council meeting is though? It's the official voice for the people to hear us. And we do have access to the Ripon channel, and everybody can see us there. Not everybody has access to internet, I understand that, but this is also a public forum. And the public is more than welcome to come in here and speak with us every day. I mean, every time we're here, sorry. So I can understand Mr. Hansen's point to saying why the need for the proclamation, if we're getting that notice out there already to people.
I'd like to ask, how are we already getting that notice out? How are we already encouraging?
You've been downtown walking around looking at people. There's people that are wearing masks, there's people that are not wearing masks.
Those are individuals that are doing this, but how as a
Correct.
city have we encouraged it?
By having these meetings.
We talk about it. I talk to a lot of my constituents all the time.
To wear a
They ask me
mask?
about things. you know, it's freedom of choice is what I tell them.
Sure.
You know, practice, be smart, practice safe distancing, you know, those are things we can tell. That's all educational aspect of it. As a city, you know, I think we're jumping on the bandwagon of everybody else that's been throwing these out in this aspect. We're a smart community. We have a lot of great people here that are educated and know what they should do, when they should do it, how they should do it. I don't think we need to have a proclamation to tell them, this is what you, be strong, or take the word strong though, this is what we as a city recommend. That's my feeling. I'm talking with constituents and myself.
I respect that. Of course, I just haven't seen as a city that we have necessarily come out in other ways saying that we support individuals that want to wear, that to encourage face masks. I haven't seen officially ways that we've done that.
There's a lot of things the city has not come out and supported in a proclamation that they do support. So, I mean.
Right.
It's the same scenario.
I just heard you say that there is ways that we have supported it, so I was just questioning what those ways were.
Communication.
I think also standing behind our local businesses, making the decision to mandate a mask in their stores. And we as a city are supporting that ideology because that is their choice to make people wear a mask. Education-wise, maybe we gotta look into some type of education available for people to better understand what this virus does, what it is, where it originated from, how it came to be. But I'm having a hard time sitting here wondering if we should even have a proclamation. Because as Howard said, we're Ripon, we're smart, okay? We may have the small mentality here, but the small town, we have a huge mentality. We are very smart up here, and we know our stuff. And I would trust people's personal judgments with their convictions to want to wear a mask or not to wear a mask.
John?
Again, I'll say I'm not in favor at all of this voluntary masking. As far as education, it's out there. Everybody should know about it by now, and it's your choice, yes or no, to wear a mask. And respecting other people's views, that should just come as a regular human being. You should be able to thoughtfully respect somebody else's point of view. So this, to me, it really doesn't do anything for me.
Any other discussion?
Actually,
Joanne?
so we were talking about making some edits to this. So now what is the resolution on that? Are we now,
At this point, we could either make a motion to make those edits to the proclamation, and if we have a motion and a second to make those motions, we would vote on that. If we don't have a motion to make the edits, the current motion is to vote on the proclamation as it was written.
Well,
This is
make a motion
currently a
on that.
discussion item.
There was never a motion to approve it, was there?
No, the only,
There was not a motion?
no, it was just to open
Just
this
a
up for discussion. Ben made the motion and I seconded
I
it.
apologize, I thought there was a motion.
No.
So, to clarify, please, that you could make a motion to approve it with the edits, or we could do nothing and it's a discussion item. We could bring it back at the next meeting as an action or a discussion item again.
I would motion to edit it to the liking of the council, but motion it as well to bring it to the next meeting with those edits, if that's allowed.
Clean it up and bring it to the next meeting. I'll second that for discussion.
Talk about it.
The motion has been made to make edits to the proclamation and bring it back to the next meeting. Is there discussion on that motion?
I would just ask that you view the wording of that carefully as some words can be taken aggressively, and that's about it.
The only question to that, Ben, would be next meeting, are we gonna have the same discussion over again? You know, to be honest, I mean, I think I can kind of hear the
I think
different views. Are we just gonna have the same discussion again, just cleaned up?
I think if they clean
We've done that before, just so you know, we have done that many times where we clean it up and bring it back because of stuff like that. So I'm good either way.
Yeah, I think if we bring it back to the next meeting and it's written how, and it's written in a way that people would agree with, then we should be able to decide to vote on whether or not we move forward with the proclamation.
Any further discussion on editing and bringing back to the next meeting? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Yes, please. Could we do a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Schrader.
Aye.
Mrs. Schatzinger.
Aye.
Mr. Hanson.
No.
Mr. Gallops.
Aye.
Mr. Morrison.
Aye.
Mr. Wirch.
Aye.
Mr. Split.
No.
Motion carries 5-2.
Thank you. So that proclamation will be edited and brought back to the next meeting. Is there any further discussion on face masks, or will that be it for the evening on that item?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes?
You will take the lead on editing and then circulate?
Yes, I'll work with Al. Would you like to work with me on that?
Certainly.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So, moving on to project updates and staff reports. Lori?
We have 3 employees celebrating anniversaries in the month of July. We have Candy Ferrari at the police department, 7 years. Christina Suyak at the police department, 8 years. And John Quackle at Public Works, 14 years. And I do want to remind everybody that our next council meeting is scheduled for August 11th, which is Election Day, so we won't have a council meeting that evening. If there is something pressing that we need to meet about, then we can always schedule a special meeting.
That all for yours? Public Works?
Are you indicating, Laura, you're gonna set a different date?
No, I'm just saying that our next council meeting is on Election Day, so we won't have a council meeting on August 11th. If there is a pressing item that comes up that we need to meet about, we can always schedule a special meeting. But at this point, I don't have anything pressing.
Thank you.
All right. Go ahead, Ann?
And I just want to state that in-person absentee voting is starting. It's Monday through Fridays, 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m., except on Thursday and Friday, August 6th and 7th, it's 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. And there is a drop box by the dispatch window to drop off your absentee ballots if you feel more comfortable just coming into that area.
All right. You said no report for Public Works, Police Department? Nope. All right. That's it for staff reports. Oh, yeah.
Just a report, at the last meeting, we referred the item regarding placing picnic tables, perhaps in some vacant lots downtown, was referred to the Public Works Committee. We did discuss that at our meeting last Wednesday, and we are going to bring that issue back. We're also going to invite Main Street and the Ripon Chamber of Commerce representatives to look at if there is some collaborative effort that can be done to provide that opportunity for the citizens. There's issues of liability, cleanup, maintenance, mowing, all of those things. So we want to see if we can put together a collaborative effort and plan that may not happen this year, but could be an opportunity for next spring for those particular parcels.
All right, thank you. All right, I have no appointments this meeting. Just have a small message. The time to complete the 2020 census is coming to an end. The deadline to file is Friday. The information gathered in the census is used to calculate how much funding the city will get from state and federal governments, drawing political districts, business recruiting, and much, much more. Currently, only about 74% of households in Ripon have completed their census forms. If your household has not completed its census forms, please log on to 2020census.gov and complete your form online. And as always, be safe, stay healthy, and I must put extra emphasis on remembering to be kind, considerate, and respectful to others. Are there any communications from council members? Or
Can I say?
future agenda items?
I really appreciated Ann's comments related to absentee voting and an update on that. Is that something, is it appropriate to request an update or just a reminder for the public too about voting up until our big next election? Just a reminder at each meeting. Is that something that can continue? Is that, I don't know if that's appropriate to request, but I wanted to say I appreciated that reminder for the public, and I hope it can continue.
The topics for future agenda items? Nope. Hearing
Motion to
none.
adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by James and seconded by Howard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned.